Is it really a knife?
It's a knife.
Is Future not only the toxic king, but the petty king? Is Wanna gonna continue his generational run? And if Gunna buys Thugger the right size dress, will peace be properly restored in the A? We're gonna find out on the next episode of Ratlanta, ladies and gentlemen. But first, make sure you guys hit the like and subscribe button. My name is Mfasis. I'm an artist and a content creator. And from time to time, I like doing podcasts talking about things that interest me within the realm of music and content creation. So, a lot of things have happened in the past couple of days that have really, really seemed ridiculous but also fascinating at the same time. But before we get into that, we have to actually do a quick rewind of what's led to this. So Atlanta has had a stronghold over hip hop for the past basically quarter century. It's been over a quarter century at this point. Once upon a time, uh, arrogant New Yorkers, they didn't have foresight. These are a bunch of people, short-sighted people born in like the 60s and 70s or whatever. They didn't have foresight, so they rejected the South. They thought that their accents were funny. They assumed that all these people were down there on tractor trailers and, clicking their heels, jumping up and clicking their heels and playing banjos and saying yeehaw. Like, it just, they had very specific ideas in their mind of what Southern people were. And because of that, they thought that they were too good to ever want to respect them. And so obviously Southerners recognized that disrespect, and despite them gaining momentum in the 90s, a lot of New Yorkers from that generation, they still they just didn't accept them. And there became a moment that now in hindsight pretty much has gone down in infamy, where Outkast, specifically Andre 3000, as Outkast was accepting an award, they were being booed, and Andre said a statement that has pretty much gone down in infamy over the past 30 years. And it's pretty much been a statement that has haunted New York ever since. So since that moment, this relatively small city of Atlanta, the South in general, but especially this relatively small city of Atlanta, it's had an impact over the sound, vibe, slang. It's had an impact over hip hop culture that is really too big to quantify, to be honest with you. Many records have been sold, many people have been sent to prison, many people's lives have been sacrificed. Uh, you could interpret that however you want. I'm not necessarily a conspiracy theorist, but what I mean. So either way, the highest, I mean, the biggest, not the highest, the biggest superpower that the South, but especially Atlanta, has had, in my opinion, has just been their ability to unite for the greater good of their region and trying to get as many people from their region to elevate as possible, which I always found to be very fascinating from the outside looking in. Like, I'm somebody who grew up in New York. So with that being the case, when I see all these people working together like that, it's something I find very fascinating, because it's kind of to me at least, it's a very foreign concept. Because again, New York is a very every man for themselves type of city. That's just what it's been for my lifetime. So seeing these other parts of the country where they work together more, it's very interesting to me. There's times where I wish New York was more like that, but life isn't about what I wish. It's about the reality of what is. So there's pros and cons to that, though. There's pros and cons. People often forget that there are pros and cons. Obviously the pros are they could, what's that old phrase? All the tide can rise all boats or something like that. I butchered that phrase, but y'all know what I mean. If the tide's high, the boats are higher. yada yada yada. Uh, I don't know, drunk history with me. I'm not even drunk, but still. But despite this reputation for being able to work together against all odds and set your differences aside, the past couple of days or the past couple of months, or even you could argue the past couple of years, have signaled a shift that could be happening, and it signaled the possibility of an empire about to crumble. We may look back at the date of May 9th, 2022 and May 11th, 2022, and we may look back at this years from now and say that those days were the moments where Atlanta hip hop, and specifically Southern hip hop as a whole, started to decline, and their dynasty, essentially, their dynasty run, their generational run over hip hop music, it may start to fade away. And before a bunch of arrogant Southerners complain to me and say, I don't know what I'm talking about, the South is stronger than ever, they're never gonna fall off, I want you guys to remember that once upon a time, New Yorkers said the same thing. So if you don't learn from history, you're probably gonna repeat it. But to go back to May 9th and May 11th, May 9th, Young Thug was arrested May 9th, 2022. And then on May 11th, 2022, Gunna turned himself in to the police. We all know the gist of what happened as far as they got caught up in this YSL Rico case. It was a bunch of stuff that happened. There were many side characters who honestly don't really matter that much to the story. But there were, of course, main characters like Mr. Thugger Thugger, Mr. Gunna Wanna, and then also Miss Gorilla Grip. And ladies and gentlemen, to this day, Gorilla Grip is always going to be the funniest nickname that I ever heard in my life. But that's neither here nor there. Long story short, a lot of people talked. Most of them are side characters. The main person who spoke and sent a statement to the court was that caught attention, at least, was Gunna. He sent a statement where he literally said that YSL was a gang, and that sparked a debate because many people wanted to know, based on this dumbass street logic, is Gunna now a snitch or is he not? Does Young Thug hate him? Does he not? Became an argument that people were going crazy over for like a year and a half or 2 years or 3 years or whatever. But at the end of the day, Gunna did get out of jail much earlier than Young Thug. So people by default just said, well, he's a snitch, and they weren't really feeling him anymore. And you see a lot of rappers, they began to obviously try to coordinate a blackballing of Gunna, where they started to diss him and also distance themselves from him. Which, again, remember earlier in this video when I said there's pros and cons to places like Atlanta being so good at uniting and to try to help elevate each other? The con to that is that whole setup is, it creates a very high school type of environment. And what I mean by that is it's based on a lot of cliques. And based on the people that I've met from Atlanta, that's something that they low-key end up saying to me without really saying it, but based on how they describe the region, that's really what it's all about. It becomes a big clique-centric sort of region. And if any of you have been to high school, which most of you probably have, you know that though, when you see these cliques, it's very weird because they'll always act like they're the coolest in the room and they love each other to death and blah, blah, blah. But then all it takes is one or two little random things to happen to kind of make everybody fall out. And next thing you know, the dynamic of that clique can change dramatically because there's somebody in the clique who people just have decided they don't like anymore. And in this case with Gunna and Young Thug, obviously Gunna was that figure that people didn't like anymore. So despite getting blackballed, or people attempting to blackball him and try to sabotage him basically. Gunna still thrived. He came out. Well, first of all, he laid low for a couple months, and then he started releasing songs, and those songs were honestly pretty dope. Bread and Butter was dope. Like, he put out really the best material of his career, in my opinion. He put that out, and despite all the snitch claims or snitch accusations or whatever, he was able to cancel all that out just by dropping like catchy songs. Because again, if you just drop a song that becomes really popular and people like it, people really don't have as much morals as they want to pretend like they do. It doesn't matter. You could be whatever. You could be a murderer. You could be a rapist. You could be a pedophile. You, not saying you should be obviously, but you could be a lot of things, and really people will not care if your songs are hit songs. Like if they're just if they're if they're big enough songs, if you're a big enough artist, nobody will really care. This is why I get annoyed sometimes when people pretend like they're the moral police, because in reality, most of these people really don't have the morals they want to pretend like they have. But that's neither here nor there. Either way, Gunna was putting out some bangers, and so nobody cared about the whole snitch thing anymore. It didn't really matter. And then also something that was interesting that was happening was Gunna spoke in a very vague manner when discussing what his relationship with Young Thug was after his release, specifically with the interview with Spotify. So 2024 comes by. In October of 2024, Young Thug, against all odds, it looked like he was probably going to be in jail for a long time, but one thing led to another. He got released from jail, and people were unsure of how Young Thug felt the whole time, because technically Thug was behind jail, behind bars, so Gunna was talking as if maybe they are still cool. But when Thug came out, he made it clear that he really didn't rock with Gunna. Even before he was fully released, he started to drop hints. Like he put out a tweet or whatever it was from jail saying whatever Wham says goes, and Wham is Little Baby, and Little Baby let it be known that he's not a fan of Gunna and what Gunna did. And then obviously when Young Thug got out of jail, he made it clear that hey, me and Gunna are not cool. He got to stop pretending like we are. So it is what it is. Then you have them pretty much completely go their separate ways, obviously. But something interesting happened within the past like year. These rappers who were in this clique, who were icing out, trying to phase out, trying to blackball Gunna. Something interesting that happened was these rappers over the past year or so, it's been very evident that they've hit a rough patch in their career where the hits aren't they're not dropping hits like they used to, and the albums aren't selling like they used to. There's a clear decline that's happening in their career right now. And some people may blame it on the landscape of hip hop as a whole, because if you paid attention earlier this year, a 35-year streak of hip hop having at least one song in the top 40 on the Billboard charts, it was broken, and where there was no hip hop song in the top 40. So some people may say hip hop as a whole was declining, and it's not has nothing to do with these specific artists. And that's a fair argument, but I don't know if I fully believe that. I think that's more so coincidence, but it's still a very fair argument to be made. So, but what's so interesting is even though these artists who were, making it clear that they were against Gunna for what happened, they were hitting a rough patch in their career. At the exact same time, Gunna has continued to thrive. He's more popping than he's ever been over the past 3 years. He's put out a lot of really, in my opinion, his best material, whether it be the song Fuck You Mean, whether it be One of One, whether it be WGFT. many, many hit songs, dope projects. One of one, like I said, The Gift and the Curse, and his most recent project. So he's still doing just fine, funny enough. Now, a few days ago, 21 Savage released an album, and that album did lower than a lot of people in the general public expected. So typically they were expecting somebody as popular as 21 Savage to do over 100,000. This album did about 50. So then there was a debate that started occurring over whether that was a flop or not. I'm not here to discuss if it was a flop or not, because I mean, it that's a tough conversation to have, really. But what's interesting is the timing of what just happened over the past couple of days, where now 21 Savage is coming out and trying to essentially end all the different beasts that are going on. He put out a series of tweets where he basically was pleading with everybody to put all of these issues behind him. So he told Future he's sorry and said that he should have called first. Called about what? I don't know. I don't really understand what their issue. I've seen rumors saying that maybe Future smashed 21's girl or whatever, but if that's the case, I don't know why 21 would send a message saying I should have called you first, but hey, I don't know. I guess anything is possible. Also, there's rumors saying that maybe their issue started because Future was mad that Drake did a collab album with him, and he did a collab album with 21 and not Future, which sounds pretty dumb because Future's done a bunch of collab projects with people. But again, I don't know. Maybe that is the truth. I'm not sure. That would make more sense when it comes to 21's statement about, hey, I should have called you. But he also sent a message to QCP saying, "Hey, I told you how I felt about you telling too, but I didn't want to put you on that blast publicly because you were helping people, young people from the city." Which also shows that a lot of these guys, they love pretending like they have all these unbreakable morals and street codes that they live by, but clearly, just by you admitting that, you're also admitting that you bend the rules for people. But then also, he said, when tweeting at Young Thug, he said, "Hey, you already knew that Gunna really wasn't a street guy, and we already knew this from the first time he told." And when he says first time, I'm assuming he's referencing when Gunna was on there was like a TV show called Crime Stoppers back in like the 2000s and 2010s. I'm assuming he's referencing that because that's something that Gunna actually was on. But even then, that still would go fly in the face of all of these silly street standards that they set, where they try to act like they never affiliate with people who could be considered quote unquote lame or snitches or all these things that in reality you don't actually. By you admitting this, you're proving that you don't actually follow those rules, which is not a surprise to me, but to some people it may be a surprise, obviously. Now, I've seen people who I think are biased say that this whole situation has nothing to do with these guys' albums not selling what they usually sell. And I fully disagree. I do not believe for 1 second that if Young Thug or 21 Savage sold 100K for first week for their albums, I don't believe for 1 second this would happen. I just don't believe it. I really don't. But they didn't sell that, and now conveniently, when they're all in a weird space in their careers where they're all at risk of completely falling off, they are now trying to hurry up and piece things back together to try to save what's left of their prime. Yeah, what's left of their prime. To me, the $1 million question is Gunna gonna be willing to reconcile with these guys again? because these other guys getting cool with each other. I mean, that's fine, but it doesn't really matter because honestly, Gunna is the hottest one out of all of them. Not include Future, I guess, because Future is still a more popular artist than Gunna, but still, as far as everybody else, Gunna is on a way hotter streak right now compared to everybody else. So he low key doesn't need them. Whereas on the flip side, they low key need him, and they need him pretty badly actually. Like they desperately could use a Gunna collab right now. If I was Gunna, again, I'm not. This is none of my business. Obviously, it's nobody's business. All of us paying attention to this right now, it's none of our business. But if I was gonna, honestly, I would not accept any apology or try to reconcile with these guys. I know Young Thug in his interview with the bank guy. I think his name is either Bank or Hank. In that interview, he said that hey, his dad put him and Gunna in like a group chat, but Gunna didn't take advantage of the opportunity by trying to reach out and explain to him his perspective on everything. So I mean, look, clearly Thug does really like Gunna and does feel hurt about the situation, but you have a lot of pride in the way, and so I don't think either side is ever gonna really try to go out of their way to reconcile. But if I'm Gunna, I definitely wouldn't, just because I'm like, look, man, I've already proven that I don't need y'all, and then also it was very clear for like a 2 to 3 year window that y'all would actively trying to blackball him. Like you got leaked phone calls of Young Thug calling his rapper friends and asking them to diss Gunna on his album and telling them that he's gonna drop his album the same day or same weekend that Gunna dropped as an attempt to take attention away from Gunna's album, basically trying to sabotage his release. And then obviously these many rappers have come out and have dissed Gunna in the past. Again, if I'm Gunna, based on all of that, even though I do think part of it is Gunna's fault too, to me, if I'm in his position, I just simply would just walk away from it and not look back. I don't think Gunna really has to look back at this point. He's actually managed to survive and really thrive despite all of this, which again, it's just boiled down to the fact that he's still making really catchy music. He is still in his prime, low key, whereas the other people involved in this, in my opinion, I think that they are at the tail end of their primes. But that's just my opinion, though.